Welcome back to Underground Nutrition, Esoteric Supplements. Today we're talking about sea moss. We're going to talk about some of its benefits. We're going to talk about some of its origins. We're going to talk about the farming methods, the controversies, and the different types. It's a super confusing supplement. I went into this thinking I was going to do some research. I was going to pump out a video onto the next thing. I figured I'd start with an easy one. Sea moss, how hard could it be? It's basically a multivitamin. I'll just get on here, I'll tell everybody what the benefits are, tell you it's like generally good, maybe give you some history on it and keep it moving. But sea moss is surrounded with misinformation, confusing terms, different methods of farming, different species, and there seems to be a little bit of a clash online about what's what. So I'm going to try to break it down as easily as I can. So there's a bunch of different types of sea moss, but for the sake of this video and in all reality, there's only two that matter. The ones that I see the most, the ones that are most talked about, the ones that are most sold as supplements, at least from what I've seen, is Irish sea moss, which is Chondrus crispus, and then there's Gracilara, which is just sea moss. They are very similar. There are some differences. The sea moss, just regular sea moss, not Irish sea moss, grows in warm temperature, warm climate around the equator, Africa, Asia, Caribbean, and the Irish sea moss is a cold water sea moss, and that's in like the northern Atlantic, cold water climate. The Irish sea moss is a little bit darker, and depending on what you read online, they say it's a little more nutrient dense. There's nothing to verify that. I haven't seen anything where I can say specifically, yes, that's true. And the sea moss, the warm water sea moss, we'll call it, is a little bit lighter in color, but essentially they are very similar. As far as I can tell, so if you get high quality organic sea moss, you're going to be getting essentially the same product. But there are some differences, and I'll get into that later. Before we go on, I just want to talk a little bit about history. This is esoteric supplements, and I think it's important, and it's just something that I like to do. I like to give the history of where these types of supplements come from, where they were used throughout history, and Irish sea moss gained notoriety, or at least it's famous for, really saving people during the Irish potato famine, which happened in the 1800s. For those of you who don't know, the potato famine was like a fungus or a blight that struck the potato crop in Ireland, and as a result, they couldn't feed livestock, they couldn't feed themselves. Potatoes are very nutrient-dense, starchy carbohydrate, and livestock died. 1 million people either starved to death or fled to America to get away from the famine. Irish sea moss was used and incorporated with milk and sugar and spices to make a really nutrient, mineral dense beverage, which probably saved countless lives. It became popular because of that, but it was also known as a peasant food, and after the famine kind of lost popularity because, poor people, and also probably tastes like shit. Before that, in Eastern medicine, sea moss was used in China and Asia to help with respiratory diseases. And it's also pretty well known and used in Caribbean homeopathic medicine. So what are people using sea moss for today? It's got 92 organic minerals. A lot of those minerals are essential and can't be made by the human body. For example, I'm not going to make this into a benefits video per se, but iodine is great for the thyroid. It's a precursor to a healthy functioning thyroid. Your body cannot make iodine on its own. You have to get it from foods. Going back to Eastern medicine, which I find interesting, is in Eastern medicine it was used to help with respiratory diseases, and some of the literature says that consuming seaweed can help dissolve mucus and open up air passageways, so getting more oxygen into the blood, which can't be a bad thing. It's an organic source of selenium. I should make a whole video about selenium on its own. I don't have time to get into it here, look it up, but everybody in the world should be taking selenium. It is a very powerful supplement, and I think it's super underrated. So essentially, I would use sea moss as a multivitamin, in lieu of a multivitamin. It has a number of different functions. It is, I hate the word superfood, but it is a superfood. And if you get a good quality sea moss, there's nothing but upside for taking something like that. And I really like to use supplements as exactly what the word implies, to supplement your diet. If you're not eating food rich in iron or rich in iodine or selenium, that sea moss is an easy way to sort of fill in the gaps. The question with sea moss is not whether or not it's a good supplement to take, because I think it is. I think the question is how do you navigate the consumer bullshit? Because like I said, just in the research for this video, I encountered 20 or 30 different websites that had conflicting opinions of the product, and there isn't a ton of actual studies on it. There's not a, it wasn't like my glycine video where I had like scientific literature. It's few and far between, and a lot of the information out there seems to be spotty at best. So that would bring me into the controversies surrounding sea moss. The biggest issue is a substance called, I'm going to butcher it, called carrageenan. Carrageenan is a polysaccharide, which is essentially a carbohydrate, that is used as a weapon grade food additive. And it's been industrialized, and I mean, it's literally in everything. It's in ice cream, it's an emulsifier, it's like a seed oil almost. It's like a dirty derivative of sea moss. And there are some studies and some literature out there that suggests that it's highly inflammatory. And what I found in digging a little bit deeper is two things. Is that yes, Irish sea moss does contain carrageenan, but it looks like it's the industrialization of carrageenan and it being used as a food additive in almost everything, that maybe in that denaturing and removing it, whatever process that is that maybe that sort of changes it and it becomes seed oil-like in its inflammatory response in the body. I think, this is my personal opinion, not backed up by anything, that natural Irish sea moss that contains carrageenan is not harmful. The amount that you're taking in a supplement, for example, I think the benefits would far outweigh any of the inflammatory response from a natural carrageenan. It's literally in everything. You can't avoid it. So even if you don't want to take sea moss because of that reason, you probably had some today. Irish sea moss, while it does contain a high amount of carrageenan, the warm water sea moss doesn't contain carrageenans. It contains a polysaccharide called agar. And I'm basing this off a company that I ultimately ended up bringing into my store. They make the claim that Gracilara contains no carrageenan, so you can kind of just avoid that whole question altogether, and you still get the 92 minerals. It sort of just skips over the whole controversy of carrageenan. Lastly, I'm not some hippie, but I do care about the environment, and I care about the oceans. I think from my research on sea moss, there are some unsettling things about farming methods. First would be pool farming. I don't even think this is something that you need to worry about. I've read in several different places that pool farming, that specific sea moss is usually used in animal feed, and that that's not sold as a supplement. Regardless, if you see pool farmed sea moss online, don't buy it, because there's no nutrients. It's much less nutrient dense than open ocean farming or the other form of sea moss farming, which is called wild crafting, and like artisan cheese, like it's some hipster. My sea moss is wild crafted. So what wild crafting means essentially is that it's just found in nature. It's in its natural state. People go out and they farm it, go out there and they just rip it from its natural habitat. Now, that being said, there is an issue with that, with the popularity of wild crafting. It's a big market. Wild crafting has become pretty destructive to the environment. Sea moss, they pull carbon dioxide and they release oxygen into the water and they sustain whole ecosystems. Now, if there's enough people going into those ecosystems and tearing out what gives it oxygen and places for fish to hide and bacteria and the whole circle of life thing, it can be extremely destructive, which brings me to the last type of farming, which is open ocean farming. And what they do is they take ropes and they go out into open ocean and they set up basically like farmers. They set up these ropes that go down into the ocean and grow and harvest sea moss. The benefits to that is you can go into dead zones in the ocean and re-oxygenate the area. Some of the downsides maybe being that the quality might not be as good as wild crafting, although I haven't seen any evidence to support that. With a gun to my head, if I were to pick based on what I read, I think the open ocean organic sea moss is less impactful and maybe even helpful to the environment. So with all that being said, with all the information I just gave you, I came across a company called My Grind is Organic. And I got some of the information from this video from their website. They seem to be very eco-friendly. I'm not sponsored by them at all. they chose the warm water, open ocean sea moss, open ocean farming. And I chose to bring them into my store because, number one, they claim that there's no carrageenan in the product. Number two, they use an open ocean farming method, which I think, based on what I read, is more environmentally friendly. And they also seem to give back a lot, and they care very much about the environment. So I brought them into my store. They have no idea I'm making this video. I don't even really use sea moss, to be honest with you. I use, like, as often as I use a multivitamin, like every couple of weeks, I'll get like health inspired, and I'll be like, I'll be more healthy this week, and I'll take like a multivitamin for a couple of weeks. I take sea moss for a couple of weeks, but then I kind of fall off. What I find interesting, and the reason why I do these videos, is because for thousands of years, going back maybe even more, people of societies from all over the world, you had the people in Ireland who, I don't believe that the potato famine hit and they were like so hungry that they went out to the sea and just started eating seaweed. I think that's part of the zeitgeist, is that they knew that that was nutrient dense, because centuries and centuries prior to that is that people probably ate sea moss or used sea moss for whatever particular benefits. And on the other side of the world, you have the people in Eastern medicine in China and Asia using sea moss available to them to treat respiratory illness. And you have people in the Caribbean who consume it a lot, and they use it for all different stuff. So I think there's something to be said for that, especially from different cultures all over the world using a similar supplement or homeopathic remedy. I think it speaks to the validity of the supplement. That's the stuff that I kind of find interesting. If you for some reason want to try the sea moss, you can buy it in my store. The link is down below. And if you like the video, please like it. Consider subscribing. I'm going to try to do more of these esoteric supplement videos. I was doing them for a while. I kind of fell off, but I enjoy making them. Anyway, thanks for watching. Oh, if you want me to do a specific supplement or something, comment below. I'll look at it.